Okay, my friend, let's talk about how to lean in even when fear shows up without having to force confidence. So, if you are watching me today, I'm going to guess there's a very good chance that there's something in your life that you've been pulling back from. Not because you don't care, not because you're lazy, not because you don't want your goals, and not because you're not confident enough, but because the moment that you go near a thing, whether it's a conversation that you need to have, a task that you need to do, a goal that you need to start, or something that you want to share, maybe it's even just a decision that you need to make, your body tenses, your mind freezes. Okay, your mind probably gets really loud and you start thinking of 10 reasons why you should not do this thing right now, why you need to wait. And suddenly, pulling back feels like the smartest option in that moment. And I want to say this up front that wanting to pull back is a very normal human thing. Okay, it's your first human instinct because our nervous system is wired for safety, not growth. It's wired to reduce the discomfort in our life. Okay, and so you've probably been avoiding something because you feel like it's the first most natural thing to do. But you don't have to beat yourself up for it. You don't have to label yourself as a procrastinator or someone that never follows through. You just need to understand exactly what is happening and learn a different way to respond when fear shows up, which it will, okay? Fear is going to be a constant passenger in the car while we're traveling through life. And all you need to do is learn a different way to cope while fear is that passenger. So if we've never met before, my name is Frances Vidakovic. I'm a life coach and course creator and the face behind inspiringmumlife.com. And in this video, I want to show you what leaning in actually looks like when fear shows up without having to force unnatural confidence, without having to push yourself or pretend that you are just fine when you really feel as if you're not. And this is not a hype video. I don't do stuff like that. It's not a just be brave and do it pep talk. I'm going to show you a different way of doing things, okay, which isn't about forcing you to experience or feel confident when you just don't feel that way. I'm going to teach you a concept that is literally going to change everything from here on, okay? It's leaning in. What does leaning in actually mean? What does it look like in real life? What does it feel like in your body? And why it works even when you are feeling scared. So by the end of this video, you're going to have a very simple way to think about fear that stops you from just like organizing your life to try to, avoid that discomfort. And I'm going to have you move forward towards that fear in a way that feels very steady and doable. Are you with me? So let's start with step one, okay? Because if you don't understand this part clearly, everything else is going to feel so much harder than it needs to. So the first step to this process about learning to lean in towards the things that scare us is actually understanding what leaning is and why it helps you so much. So let's just define it properly. I always think it's like really important that you understand exactly what I'm talking about. And leaning in, I know, can sound like one of those very vague phrases that people like to throw around. But when I say leaning in, I'm not talking about hustling harder. I'm not talking about pushing yourself until you're feeling, overwhelmed. I'm not talking about pretending that you're fearless. Okay? We all experience fear. But here's what I do mean. Leaning in means choosing the smallest intentional contact with the thing that scares you on purpose so that fear stops running your life. And that's it, okay? It's not about taking huge leaps. It's about choosing with intention the direction that which you want to take. Because most of the time, fear isn't asking you to quit. It just asks you to actually step back, to delay, to avoid, to wait until you feel more ready, all these little lies, to plan more, to prepare more, to overthink more. But leaning in is a decision that you make to do the opposite of that. It's choosing, I'm going to move 1 inch closer, not because it feels comfortable, but because it matters, because it's important. So what this looks like in real life, it usually looks very, very unglamorous in case you're wondering. It looks like writing that sentence that you've been avoiding, just writing one sentence. It's sending the text that you've been rewriting in your head for a whole week and keeping it super simple. It's booking an appointment that you've been putting off that you know that you need to do. It's posting the video, even if you feel a little bit exposed. It's saying an honest sentence in a conversation that you have been avoiding, just honesty, or making a decision and just deciding this is where I'm going, instead of like collecting more opinions for others. So in case you haven't worked out, like leaning in is not dramatic. It's very private sometimes, and that's why it's so powerful, because your brain doesn't need to do anything dramatic. It just needs evidence that you can do it in tiny little baby steps. And so what does leaning in feel like? It once again, it's not going to be glamorous in any way, okay? This is the part that probably makes people scared of even giving it a go, and they probably think that they're doing it wrong. But what leaning in actually feels like is discomfort It's edginess because you're moving to the edge of your comfort zone. It's vulnerability. It's a fluttery kind of fear. You know, the one that you sort of like get confused. Am I excited? Am I scared? I have no idea what's going on. It's a desire to escape and a sense of, I don't know if I like this. I don't even know if this matters to me anymore. I'm just like going to try to kid myself that I don't really want that thing in order to avoid doing it. And the most surprising part is sometimes it feels a little exciting. That's why I'm going to be encouraging you to lean in and not like, woohoo, exciting, this is so fantastic, but just more like you feel like you are truly alive, not a walking zombie walking through the world. You are alive. And when you're leaning in, you're like, it's almost like you're thinking to yourself, well, this matters. I'm doing something real. I'm doing something important. Like I'm not abandoning myself in this moment. And this mix of uncomfortable, like the discomfort, mixed with alive, is usually the best sign that you are on the edge of growth. So if leaning in feels uncomfortable, okay, that doesn't mean that you're not ready. It means that you're human and you're doing it right. So in case you're wondering, so I always like to give the flip side of what leaning in is not. Okay, leaning in case you're wondering, because I want you to feel safe when it comes to doing this, leaning in. It's not forcing yourself to panic. It's not pushing yourself through, at full intensity. It's not ignoring your nervous system. It's not, I'm going to do the scariest thing possible today and I have to. Okay, leaning in is I'm going to take the next honest, tiny baby step and I'm going to stay with myself while I do it. That's a big difference. Okay, so the opposite of leaning in is pulling back. Okay, you can always tell. You can always do it. You lean in or you pull back. Okay, and the opposite of leaning in is what most of us do automatically. We pull back, we avoid, we delay, we talk ourselves out of things. We tell ourselves, I'll do it when I have more time. I'll do it when I feel better. I'll do it when I feel more confident. I just need to think about it a little bit more. I need a better plan. I don't want to do it wrong. Okay, is any of this resonating with you? If so, this is totally normal. But it's also important to know that pulling back does something important. Okay, it gives you relief. That's why we do it immediately. You pull back, you feel a little bit safer, you feel a bit calmer, you feel like you've regained control, and your brain loves that. Okay, and your brain learns in some crazy way, okay, avoiding things makes me feel better. Let's just do that again next time I, contemplate doing something scary. And that's why avoidance specifically becomes a pattern, not because you're weak, okay, but because it works in the short term. Okay, you get that relief. But the problem is what it costs you in the long term. Okay? Your brain learns that fear, okay, can be relieved. And that association is a reason you keep on giving into it. When you avoid the thing, your anxiety drops. And so your label, the thing that you considered to be dangerous still stays dangerous because you never got a chance to prove to yourself that it wasn't. Okay, it's not dangerous, but your brain and the way that you are performing when it comes up decides that it is true. Avoidance is teaching you, oh my gosh, good thing that we escaped that. Okay, that was a threat. Leaning in teaches you it's a good thing that we stayed because I've discovered I can actually handle this. And that's why leaning in works. Not because it magically removes the fear, it doesn't, but because it rewires your brain, okay, to believe something different about your ability to cope. You discover that you can cope when you do lean in. And so when your brain and your mind starts to believe I can handle this, that is specifically, my friend, how you grow stronger in life. Not overnight, okay, but steadily. The more that you do something that scares you and you discover you can do it, you grow stronger over time. Okay, and if you remember nothing else from this first step, remember this. Discomfort is not danger. Okay? Of course, fear can be connected to discomfort. It's true. We're uncomfortable when we experience fear. Fear is just a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what's on the other side yet because you haven't given it a go. And sometimes fear is just your body reacting to the unknown. Totally normal. But once you stop treating discomfort like a stop sign, that is when your life is going to expand, okay? Because when you stop waiting for the fear to disappear, which it never will, okay, that's when you stay stuck, if you're waiting for it to disappear. But I'm going to be encouraging you to move with it, to learn with it, okay, to build trust with yourself inside it, okay, and that changes everything. So just a recap of the first step, okay? It was all about explaining to you what leaning in is all about. Leaning in, it means that you're moving 1 inch closer to the thing that scares you on purpose. Okay, it's about doing the thing that feels uncomfortable, and that's normal that it's uncomfortable. And pulling back feels very revealing, which is why we do it, and that's why it becomes a habit. But leaning in is going to teach your brain that you can handle this. I'm recording this, my friend, on a day that in Australia it's like 40 degrees. Discomfort, but I can handle it. So now, in step 2, we're going to get very practical and identify exactly where you need to lean in more. Okay, because clarity here is going to make everything so much easier. So step 2, work out exactly where you are being asked to lean in. You, okay? We all have different things that we've got to lean in towards. But before you can practice even leaning in, you need to have clarity here. Not clarity about how to do it. Okay, we're going to get there soon. But clarity about where leaning in matters most to you in life. Because fear isn't always, loud and obvious most of the time. Sometimes it's very quiet beneath the surface. It doesn't usually announce itself. You're not walking around going, "Oh, I'm afraid today." It's much quieter than that. It shows up as hesitation, as delay, as avoidance dressed up as logic. Okay, it seems like the logical thing to do, not to do that thing because you're really scared. And so in this step, I want to help you gently spot the places where you are pulling back without judgment, without shame, and without turning this into a self-criticism exercise. This is all about awareness, zero blame, zero judgment. But in this step, I have to normalize something very important. Okay? Your instinct probably is to pull back when something feels uncomfortable. That is not a flaw. That is not a mindset problem. That's not that you are bad at courage. That is just you being a human doing exactly what your nervous system was designed to do. Your brain's first job is always to keep you safe. And it defines as safe very, very broadly. Safe can mean, to your mind, not being judged, not being rejected, not being seen, not being uncomfortable, not making the wrong move. And so when something matters to you and it also carries emotional risk, your system is going to respond with, "Let's just not do that now." This response is normal. Okay, and the goal is not to eliminate that instinct. You can't. It's to notice it sooner. So some quiet signs that you might be pulling back in life, like I said, doesn't look dramatic. Most of the time, it's going to look so reasonable. Here are some common ways it shows up. You keep thinking that you want to do something, or that you should, or that you want to, but you never actually quite start. You tell yourself that you're going to take action when things calm down, okay, but things never calm down. Or you spend a lot of time gathering information instead of making a decision. Or you wait, okay, you wait to feel clearer and braver and more confident first. Or you rewrite things over and over again instead of just getting it out there and doing something with that info. Or you stay busy with a small task to just avoid the one important one that needs to be done. It's like if I was to ask you now, what's that one thing that you have been avoiding that you know you need to do? You probably will instinctively know what it is. And so when we do avoid, that's not wrong, but it's often a clue of exactly where you need to look at. Because underneath all of those little avoidance signals that I spoke about is fear, not panic fear, but just a quiet fear. The kind that says, what if I mess this up? What if I regret it? What if people judge me? What if I fail? What if I succeed and I can't sustain it? And so just a simple little self-check here. I'm going to you to ask yourself this question and do not rush to answer it. Where in my life am I waiting to feel better before I move? Where in my life am I waiting for some miraculous, confidence to come or readiness to come before I take action? What is that thing that you have been avoiding? You know you have been avoiding, and if you did that thing, it would just dramatically improve your life. Potentially. We never know how things are going to play out, okay? But that one question is going to usually surface something real for you. It might be a project that you haven't taken action on, a decision that you've been postponing, a boundary you haven't set, a version of yourself that you still haven't stepped into, even though you want to. Okay, but you don't need 10 answers here. You just need to have that one honest answer come to you. And there is a difference, my friend, in case you're wondering, between not being ready and pulling back. Okay, I want to clarify this. Sometimes waiting is actually a very smart thing to do. But often what we call not ready is actually not wanting to feel exposed, not wanting to feel uncomfortable, not wanting to risk disappointment. So a helpful distinction here is if waiting is helping you prepare in a meaningful way, it's always going to feel very calm and intentional. If waiting is connected to avoidance, it usually feels heavy, repetitive, or draining. So if you keep on revisiting the same thought over and over again, I should do this, I really should do this, it's often a sign that you've just actually been asked to lean in, but you're avoiding it, okay? And so some common areas, in case you're wondering, where people need to lean into, just name a few so that you can see yourself more clearly if you see yourself in this picture. But it's like conversation, saying what you really think, what you really feel, asking for what you need, addressing something that you've been tolerating and you no longer want to tolerate. So pulling back in these moments when it comes to conversations is, I don't want to feel, I don't want to make this really awkward. But leaning is just saying that one honest sentence. Here's how I really feel, let's just say. Not the whole thing, it's just one honest sentence. When it comes to visibility, okay, if you have a career or business that requires you to play bigger versus playing small, okay, what pulling back looks like It's often like, it comes to sharing your work, being seen, putting yourself out there imperfectly, and that's what you got to lean into. Pulling back sounds like, I'm not ready yet. Leaning in might be, well, what's the harm in just posting it? Okay, letting one person see it. When it comes to your goals, like when it comes to like starting things that you've been planning or finishing things that you've been abandoning, pulling back sounds like, oh, I need a better plan first. Whereas leaning in means, I'm just willing to spend 15 minutes on this today. That's all. Okay. When it comes to your decisions, it's like actually choosing instead of just collecting more opinions. Trusting yourself. Okay. Trusting yourself instead of outsourcing outsourcing your decisions, assuming that someone else knows your life and you better than you know you. I always think it's crazy. Like, you know yourself better. Like, you know the answer. Sometimes we want other people to, like, I don't know, agree with us or, make sure that we're pointing in the right direction. But that's how you lose your power. You want to take your power back. Pulling back sounds like, I need more clarity. Better double check. Leaning in is, I'm going to make a decision, even with incomplete information, and just see where it takes me. Okay? Because I always say, the way that you make a decision right is just to decide it's the right one for you to take right now. When it comes to boundaries, saying no, disappointing people, letting go of approval, pulling back is, well, I don't want to upset anyone. And leaning in is just like saying like that one clear, kind sentence. Actually, that does bother me, or whatever it is. Okay? So the places where you have been pulling back, I've mentioned very like generic examples, so you might have something that's more specific to you. But the places that we often pull back are ironically the places that usually matter the most. Fear tends to show up around growth, not around the things that don't matter about one bit. Okay, no one's been scared about, I don't know, brushing their teeth and going to the bathroom. People are getting scared about asking for a promotion or taking the next step or pitching themselves or whatever it is. So if something keeps on nudging you, even quietly beneath the surface, it's usually worth paying attention to. Not to force yourself, but just to be really curious. And so to help you step into this, okay, if you feel resistance, even when it comes to naming the thing that you need to lean into, just try borrowing this thought. I'm not committing to this action yet. I'm just allowing myself to see at this point, in this part of the step-by-step process, I'm just allowing myself to see where I could potentially lean into. That's all. All you want is that information, and information is going to give you options. And so in this step, this was not about fixing anything, not about taking action yet. It's just about honestly answering that question. Where are you pulling back right now? Okay. And what would happen if you leaned in yourself? And what are you actually afraid of feeling if you do lean in? That's it. Okay, because once you know where you are being asked to lean in, the next step becomes so much easier. And that's what we're going to talk about next, how to prepare yourself for the discomfort that shows up before you take the step, so that you don't talk yourself out of it at the last second. Okay, step 3, prepare yourself for the discomfort before you lean in. I feel like this is the part that no one ever talks about. It's a most subtle step, but it is one of the most important ones, because most people will stop themselves. Most people don't stop themselves like during an action. They stop themselves before they take the action. Usually right before they take the action, they get close. They feel the discomfort come up in their body, and then their mind steps in and say, hang on, now's not the good time to do this. I don't want to do this. Got something else to do. Laundry, something silly, in order to avoid doing the thing that you need to do. And so step 3 is about doing something different before that moment hits. It's about preparing yourself for the discomfort before it comes. It's going to come, but instead of being surprised about it, you know that it's going to come. Okay, I'm not telling you any fibs here. The discomfort will be part of the process in this step. And so I want to normalize what is about to happen. If you're about to lean in, even just 1 inch, your system is going to react. That does not mean that you are doing anything wrong. It just means that you're doing something unfamiliar. Discomfort is the expected response when you stop avoiding something that matters. And this is where most people make the most critical mistake. They interpret their discomfort as a warning. Okay, I shouldn't do it. Feeling not uncomfortable. But the discomfort is often just information. It's like your body and your mind saying, this is new. This is outside my comfort zone. This is uncertain. This maybe even matters to me. Okay, it does not mean this is unsafe. This is a bad idea. I should turn around. So before you lean in, I want you to expect discomfort, not fear it. And so why preparing for discomfort changes everything is that if I wasn't sharing this with you, I was telling you to lean in, and discomfort catches you off guard, it's going to feel very overwhelming and not fun. And so when I tell you to expect something in you shifts. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, this feels bad, I should stop, you think, hang on, Francis spoke about this. This is the part that I knew would show up. So preparation turns discomfort from a surprise into a signal, okay, a signal that you are on the path to growth. And signals are so much easier to work with than panic. And so what discomfort's going to look like for you, just so in case you don't misread it, it does not always feel dramatic. It often feels like a restlessness, a tight chest, second guessing yourself, a sudden urge to check everything, the impulse to distract yourself and do something different, the thought that I should just do this later. Sometimes it even feels like frustration, irritation, boredom, resistance, fatigue. Oh my gosh. Can't even tell you how many times I've been so tired when it's like, time to do something important. Oh no, but I'm really tired, I need to rest now. None of these things mean that you should stop. It's just a sign that you are close. So a crucial reframe here to hold on to before you take action, I want you to anchor into this thought before you lean in. Okay? Feeling uncomfortable doesn't mean that you've made the wrong choice. It means probably that you made the right choice. Okay? Feeling uncomfortable does not mean you made the wrong choice. So many people abandon themselves at this moment. They confuse discomfort with danger, but discomfort is usually the doorway to amazing things. And so I want to offer you some thoughts to support you before you lean in. And this is where shifting your thinking becomes so powerful. You don't need to eliminate fear. You just need to have thoughts that help you stay present with the fear. Okay? You don't have to eliminate fear. You need to have thoughts and choose thoughts that help you stay present with it. Okay, so I'm going to offer you some that you can borrow. You don't have to use them all. Just choose whatever feels right to you and feels good to you and it feels grounding. But when that discomfort comes, you tell yourself, this feeling is just temporary. Okay? I don't need to like this to do it. I can feel uncomfortable and still move. I can still feel uncomfortable and take action. This is growth. This is where my growth is at. It's not a threat. And I'm allowed to take one small step. And I don't need to feel confident. I just need to be willing. I just need to tap into my courage. Okay, these thoughts aren't supposed to hype you up. They're just supposed to steady you, calm you. And there is a difference between bracing yourself and softening. A lot of people brace themselves like before they do something scary. Oh my gosh, like they tense up. They hold their breath. They tell themselves they've got to push through. But bracing is actually going to be a thing that makes discomfort feel even bigger. So I want you to consider just softening. So this looks like taking a slow breath, dropping your shoulders, okay, dropping and clenching your jaw, placing your feet on the ground, taking those deep breaths and saying quietly to yourself, I'm here, I can stay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Okay, because this is the way that you remind your body and your mind that you're not under attack. But I do want you to expect that urge to pull back. It's part of the process. In order to lean in towards the things that scare you, there's going to be an urge to pull back. Okay, right before you lean in usually. It's often like one specific moment. A moment when your mind is going to offer you an exit. Like, it might sound like, well, hang on, you can do this later. This is the right time. You're too tired today. You don't have to rush this. Wait till later. And the thought sounds so reasonable. Okay? But they don't mean that there's anything wrong with what you're doing. They're just trying to protect you. Okay, but the key is to recognize when these thoughts come up in your brain. You don't have to obey them automatically. You can think, yeah, I get it. Okay, this is part of me being a normal human. I'm about to step outside my comfort zone. Of course, I'm feeling thinking these crazy thoughts. It's trying to keep me safe, but I'm choosing to still stay. Okay, and that sentence is going to change everything. Okay, I'm choosing to stay without discomfort. And so before you lean in, just name what you're about to do. I'm about to do this thing. Name what you expect to feel. This is going to feel uncomfortable. I'll probably want to stop. And then just choose a supportive thought. I can handle this. Okay, just one little tiny baby step. And then you take action. Not perfectly, not bravely, not intentionally. Just intentionally. And that is going to turn the action into a choice instead of reaction. And so if you are listening to me and you're thinking, well, I actually just want to turn this video off and pull back right now, okay, because I don't like what you're suggesting to me that I should be leaning in towards the uncomfortable things in life, the things that are going to stretch me, the things that are taking me outside my comfort zone. That also doesn't mean that you're a weirdo or broken, like you're failing in any way. It means that you are standing on the edge of change. And the urge to retreat is always going to be the strongest right before growth. And so if you're feeling it right now, okay, not just when you're taking the action, but just from here, like being exposed to these ideas, you're not weak. It means you're tapping into the thing that is potentially, going to take you exactly where you want to go in life. And so step 3 is not about convincing yourself to act. It's about preparing yourself to feel uncomfortable, or expect it, so that fear doesn't hijack you at the last moment and surprise you. You don't need to calm yourself down completely. You just need to stay with yourself long enough to take that one step. Stay with yourself even when you're scared. Stay with yourself even when you feel uncomfortable. And once you do that, something powerful will happen, because the next step that we're going to isn't about preparing anymore. It's about actually doing the leaning in gently, 1 inch at a time. and staying present while you do it. That's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next step. Okay, step 4. Okay, I've prepared you. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You know where you got to lean in, and you know what leaning in looks like. Now we're going to lean in gently, 1 inch at a time. And this is the part that everyone overcomplicates. They hear lean in and they think they've got to do a whole big massive thing. They've got to finish a project. They've got to make a bold move. They've got to do a complete transformation. And that's usually where they want to stop. So we're going to slow this down. Leaning in is not about doing everything. It's just choosing a direction, taking a tiny baby step. It's about moving forward, moving toward the thing that scares you instead of away. Even if the movement is tiny. Let's just say if you wanted to pitch yourself to someone, it's not about doing the pitch. It's just about writing maybe 1 name down or 2 names, getting an email address. So tiny. Okay, this is about the 1 inch lean. I want you to think of leaning in as 1 inch movements, not a leap, not a jump, not a dramatic declaration. 1 inch. Okay, 1 inch is as simple as opening a document, typing a sentence, typing a word, sending a message, booking an appointment, going yet, saying 1 honest line, pressing publish, choosing rather than waiting. The goal is not to feel brave, by the way. It's not like feel brave and do the inch thing. It's do the inch thing, okay, and stop retreating. And I always say, like, the biggest, key that underpins all of my courses that I've ever created, over 90 to date, is small steps always work better than big ones. Your brain does not need you to prove, doesn't need you to prove anything to anyone. It just needs evidence that you can do it. And the evidence is built via experience, not intention. If you've ever watched The Goldbergs, one of my favorite shows, Beverly used to always say, I could have been a lawyer. I could have been. Cool. You could have done a lot of things in your life, but what are you actually going to do? Okay. The way that you grow your self-trust in life comes from the experiences that you are having. And the way that you gather the data that you need to prove to yourself that you can handle it is by actually doing the thing. And so when you take that one small step and stay present with the discomfort, your brain is learning something new. Yoo-hoo. It's like, congratulations. This was uncomfortable. And look, I didn't die. I handled it. This single piece of evidence is more powerful than any amount of self-talk, my friend. Okay, it's going to beat 1,000 positive affirmations, just that one tiny piece of proof. And I'd like for you to accumulate those little tiny pieces of evidence. And the smaller the steps are, the easier it is for you to repeat. And so when you lean in, just so you know what to expect, okay, this part really matters because most people stop here and they think that they failed, is that, like I said before, you're going to feel shaky and uncertain and exposed and tempted to backtrack and the urge to over-explain and fix things. You might even be thinking to myself, why am I doing this crazy thing? This was a mistake. I don't want to go outside my comfort zone. I don't want to grow. I'd prefer to be miserable and do nothing new rather than stretch myself and feel uncomfortable. These feelings are normal and do not mean that you were choosing wrong. It just means that your body's noticed that you've changed, and change is always going to create this weird sensation in you. But it does not mean that you have to stop. Okay, because if you want that thing, I always talk, you've got one life to live, one precious life. You've got dreams that are sitting on your heart that are probably calling your name every single day. And the way to bring them to life is to lean in towards them. And so thoughts to support you while you lean in. Okay, you don't need a whole motivational speech. You just need grounding thoughts. Okay, thoughts like, I can stay with this for 30 seconds. I don't need to decide anything else right now. I just have to do this one little tiny thing. Okay, this feeling is normal. It's going to come and go. I'm allowed to be here. I'm allowed to do this thing. And I don't have to retreat to feel safe. I can feel safe in that moment because I can handle this. Just choose whatever feels good to you and repeat it quietly and let it anchor you. For me, I love just I can handle this. I can handle this. I've got my own back. And then you stay with the discomfort just a little bit longer. This is one of the most powerful things that you can do after leaning in, is not immediately escape. This means, okay, not, opening another tab and getting distracted, not distracting yourself, not undoing what you just did, hitting publish and then pressing unpublish. Just stay with it for 30 seconds for another breath, because when you stay, your body's learning, okay, nothing bad's happening right now. She's handling it. Cool. And that is how fear very slowly loosens its grip. Now, leaning in, just so I'm clear, does not mean finishing the task. This is super important. It's not finishing the project or resolving a whole conversation or fixing everything overnight. It's not. It's just showing up. Leaning in is just showing up. You don't have to do the next 10 steps back to back. It's just lean in and do that little thing and show up. It's about not stepping away from your dreams, moving towards them in an inch. And so I've shared examples like before, but like when it comes to conversations, leaning in might be, being honest about your discomfort, or instead of just avoiding a conversation, like I actually, can't do that, or I don't like it when, whatever, be honest. When it comes to a project or a goal, leaning in might just be doing 10 minutes of work or making a decision, okay? And not backtracking, starting imperfectly. The way that I've done everything in my life, everything in my business is through messy action. Be willing to take messy action. When it comes to visibility, leaning in might be just sharing something that's even not finished. Posting without over editing. Letting people see the real version of you. I always say that the reason I think that I had 1 million people visit my website in the first year is because I was very honest about the fact that I was not a perfect parent. Okay, not a perfect parent, just be honest. Feels so good and freeing to do something that's honest and authentic to you. And leaning in when it comes to decisions are choosing something without having any guarantee. You don't know how things are going to play out. Whether you do or don't take an action, we don't know. But you got to trust yourself. Leaning in is about trusting yourself to move forward. And all of those leaning in actions truly do count. And so, also, to be clear, leaning in often feels awkward. It sometimes feels very clumsy and very overwhelming. It's like, I thought this was going to be something massive, and it just feels like, like a thing. Yeah, you've done that one little thing. Growth very rarely feels dramatic in the moment. But every time you lean in just a little, you are sending yourself a powerful message. I do not abandon myself when things get uncomfortable. I stick with it. And that is how you develop that self-trust in you. Okay, and this changes how you show up next time. You find it just a little bit easier to show up. It's still uncomfortable, but you get better at dealing with the discomfort. Have I shared with you already that discomfort actually never goes away? You just get better at handling it. And so this step 4 is not about being fearless. It's about staying with the discomfort, staying with yourself, staying long enough for your system to learn something new. Because once you've leaned in, there's only one more piece that truly matters. Okay, this is what everyone gets stripped up. So what happens after you lean in? The thoughts that rush in, the urge to retreat, the temptation to give up. That's what we're going to talk about next. So step 5, okay, dealing with the pushback after you have leaned in. This is a step that people often skip, don't want to talk about. They think that the hard part is taking the action. But the hardest part actually comes after you've taken the action, after you've sent the message, after you've pressed publish, after you've said the thing, after you've chosen. That is when pushback's going to show up. And so I want to normalize this. If you lean in and then immediately feel a wave of doubt, regret, and panic, that doesn't mean that you've made the wrong choice. It means that your nervous system's just adjusting to something new. Very uncomfortable. Okay, the adjustment can feel very uncomfortable. So if you're noticing thoughts in you that I shouldn't have done that, that was a mistake, I went too far, I should fix this, I should explain myself, I should take that back. Please hear me when I say this is very, very normal. It's not failure. It's not intuition. It's not a sign to retreat. It's like, this is pushback. That's what pushback looks like. Pushback is your system saying, this is familiar. Let's return back to what we know. Your brain is always going to prefer the familiar, because even when the familiar keeps you stuck, it's still familiar. And so whenever you do something new, especially something that matters to you, your mind is going to pull you back into old patterns. Not because those patterns were better by any means. That could be the very thing that are making you feel miserable on a daily basis, because they're known to you. And so the most common ways that pushback shows up is because it's so sneaky. It often looks like the urge to over-explain, the urge to apologize unnecessarily, the urge to justify yourself, the urge to backpedal, the urge to distract yourself, and the urge to quit altogether. I'm going to put my hand up and say I've experienced all of those things. Totally normal. I wish that someone had told me early on that these things are normal. I felt like a weirdo for experiencing those. It can even look like questioning your goals, questioning your values, doubting your ability, suddenly doubting your ability, suddenly deciding this isn't really me, I don't really want that thing. But none of that means that you were wrong to lean in. It just means that you touched the edge and you got a little bit scared. Your body didn't like that. So that's a very important distinction for us to make. There's a difference between true reflection versus fear-driven retreat. True reflection, reflecting on what you want in your life and how things are going, feels calm and steady and spacious. Fear-driven retreat feels very urgent and tight. So if you have felt like you've got to rush to undo something that you've done, that's normally fear, that's not wisdom. And some thoughts to support you when pushback hits This is where having supportive thoughts is going to make a complete difference. And here are some that you can borrow. Okay, you don't need to believe them fully, by the way. Just be willing to consider them. But you can tell yourself, this discomfort doesn't mean that I have to undo anything. I don't need to fix anything right now. I can let this settle. I can sit with it. I'm allowed to take up space. I don't have to retreat to feel safe. It's okay for this to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be uncomfortable when you do something scary. It's supposed to be uncomfortable when you step outside your comfort zone. These thoughts, by the way, are not going to make fear disappear. Okay? But they're going to help you stop allowing fear to run the show. Okay? Now, there is a power of not doing anything immediately. Sometimes like a powerful or one of the bravest response to pushback is actually just to pause. So you feel the pushback, all those feelings that I described to you. Okay, and what you can do then is pause. Not react, not explain, not fix, not distract yourself. Just pause for a moment, for a few minutes. Because often once you allow your system to just settle down, the urge to retreat will pass on its own. And this is when you realize, actually, I didn't even need to undo anything. I just had to like get used to the fact that I was leaning in. And if you do pull back, I want to share with you something important. If you do pull back after leaning in, if you do over-explain or apologize or retreat or want to abandon your goals, this does not erase any progress that you've made. This is not an all or nothing thing. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness, okay? So each time you notice yourself pulling back, okay, you're building a skill because now you're noticing. And then the skill of learning to lean in even when you feel this temptation to pull back improves over time with practice, okay? Not via shame. You're never going to get to your goals if you're shaming yourself or criticizing yourself on a daily basis. But if you're saying to yourself something like, if you pull back and you go, okay, I get it. Okay, I didn't go that well with that first time of me practicing leaning in, but I'm going to get it another go. And so instead of thinking, well, I mess this up, just you can say like, I'm learning how this works, okay? Instead of saying, well, I always do this, try, well, this is familiar. Familiarity isn't failure. I'm still going to be willing to practice feeling that discomfort. Okay, it's about improving yourself 1% at a time. And this shift alone is going to prevent you from spiraling. Because staying actually matters more than succeeding. Okay, that's a quiet truth. The real win is not how things turn out. No one ever tells you that. Okay, everyone always thinks it's like getting the goal is like the big, the icing on the cake, the trophy. But it's who you become while you walk into the goal. It's like the real win in this scenario of leaning in is the real win is you staying with yourself instead of abandoning yourself. Not the thing that you achieve, but the fact that you stayed with yourself. And so each time you resist the urge to retreat completely, you strengthen that trust in yourself. And self-trust is what makes the next lean in so much easier. Okay? So step 5 was all about holding your ground gently, not hardening, not forcing, not proving anything, just sitting and letting that moment exist without undoing it, because courage isn't about charging forward. It's about staying present when your body wants to escape, when your system wants to escape. And once you learn how to do this, okay, the next step becomes possible. Not because fear disappears, but because you know now how to get up and take action and keep on going. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay. Step 6 is all about getting back up, repeating, and letting trust build over time. So the final step is where everything is going to come all together, because leaning in isn't something you just do once and then you graduate. It's a practice, and like any practice, it's going to be imperfect, repetitive, and deeply human. And so let's talk about what happens over time, because this is where people either grow or give up on themselves, okay? We've all heard of really good ideas, and then the next day, it's like we've already moved on to something else. So I want to set the right expectation, right now. You are going to pull back again, okay? You are going to hesitate again. You're going to do something to avoid an important goals that you're supposed to be working on. You're going to have moments where fear is going to feel so freaking loud, much louder than your courage. This is not a setback, okay? It's not a setback. It's part of the process. I remember learning, because I graduated with my degree in psychology over 30 years ago. And we looked at that cycle of, what it takes to change. And, having a slip up is always going to be part of the process. And so if you're waiting for a version of yourself who never feels resistance, who does things perfectly, who never makes a mistake, who leans in and never pulls back again for the rest of her life, you're going to be waiting forever. That person does not exist. It's not you're, a weirdo for not being able to do this perfectly. No one can. Okay, the goal is not to stop fear, from ever showing up. The goal instead is to stop letting fear decide how you live. Is this making sense to you? It will always be around. I'm the world's probably biggest scaredy cat. Whenever I'm stepping outside my comfort zone, I'm feeling scared, and I just have understood that that's part of the process. Like it's supposed to be. It's like that quote, everything you want is on the other side of fear. You've got to walk through that tunnel, but know that you can handle it. And so what progress actually looks like throughout this process, and this matters a lot, it does not look like constant confidence. It doesn't look like fearless action. It doesn't look like never hesitating. It looks like, instead, noticing your fear sooner, being aware of it, catching yourself mid pullback, coming back to action more quickly than last time. If you've fallen, rather than laying on that ground for like a week, you pick yourself up maybe 10 minutes later, a day later. Like you just are kinder to yourself when you wobble. Being kinder to yourself when you wobble is part of a sign that you are making progress when it comes to this work. Because at first you might pull back for weeks, and then it's days, and then it's hours, and eventually sometimes it's minutes, and that is growth. Okay? Not because fear ever disappeared, but because your relationship with it changed. Okay, leaning in is a thing that we are doing to improve our relationship with fear. It's often a sign. It's like, oh, I'm scared right now. Is this exactly what I should be looking at doing it? Am I scared because it's taking me outside your comfort zone? And every time you learn to lean in very gently, remember I talk about like the little inch, you're building evidence in yourself. I want to say this so clearly. Every time you lean in, even imperfectly, you're collecting evidence about who you are. You're building a new identity. It's evidence that says, I can feel uncomfortable and I can stay. I don't fall apart when things feel hard. I don't abandon myself so easily anymore. I don't give up on my dreams. That is how self-trust is built. Not through affirmations, not through promises, but through lived experience. And that trust compounds over time. Okay, more than you can ever imagine. And each time you do that little tiny action, you build that self-trust in yourself. It makes the next action a little bit easier. And so just to offer you some reframes, like when you do slip up, which you will, instead of ever telling yourself a story that I failed, try thinking this is just part of the process. It's part of the repetition. Instead of saying, I always, go backwards, try, I'm learning to come back faster. It's possible that I can learn to come back faster. Instead of, I should be better at this by now, try, I'm practicing something that used to scare me. I've gone my whole life without ever having this explained to me. I'm willing just to at least learn. Okay, I'm practicing. And that shift is going to keep you in the game. Because there is slowly going to be an identity shift that happens beneath the surface very quietly. And at some point, you're going to notice it. Like at first, you don't notice it and something eventually changes in you. And you stop thinking of yourself as someone who avoids or someone who overthinks everything or someone who freezes. And you start seeing yourself as someone who shows up even when it's uncomfortable. Someone who comes back quicker next time. Someone who does not quit on themselves and their dreams. And that identity shift doesn't happen because you tried to be braver. It just happens because you practiced leaning in again and again. I feel like that is true for me. At one point, I was too scared to do anything, and now I'm suddenly less scared, but more willing to experience that fear. And then identity shift just one day clicks. Okay, but it happens because you practice leaning in. And so let that repetition of leaning in be gentle, not punishing. This is so important. Leaning in is not something that you should use to whip yourself into action. It's not, you should be doing better at this by now. It's this, leaning in is how I support myself when fear shows up. I'm willing just to lean in. Okay, physically just lean in. Okay, some days your leaning in is going to be so tiny. Some days you're going to have more capacity. Both count. It's consistency that is always going to matter more than intensity when it comes to your goal chasing. And so to offer you a thought, if there's one thought that I'd love for you to hold on to as you practice this leaning in, is that you don't have to get it right. You just need to keep on coming back to it. Coming back to yourself, coming back to the practice, coming back to the 1 inch lean, reminding yourself why you want to lean in. Because you have goals that I'm guessing that you want to achieve in your life. You want to have a sense of calm and peace in your life. And this is how courage becomes a part of who you are. Not something that you have to summon. It's just becomes you, an integral part of you. And I say this because it truly, truly matters. Okay, this is important work. This is what takes you to where you want to go. Okay, if fear is a signal, it signifies when we talk about it in the concept of your goals and your comfort zone, everything you want is on the other side of your of your comfort zone. And this work is so much easier when you don't have to do it alone. Okay, when you're reminded, when you're supported, and when you're gently guided back to your true purpose in life, whatever you deem that to be, your goals, your desires, what are you here on this earth, to do? And can you continue to support yourself with that compassion instead of shaming yourself whenever you slip? And that is exactly why I created the Fearless You Club, a place for someone who is wanting to practice being more courageous in life, very imperfectly, very gently, one step at a time. It exists exactly to support the people who are working through this idea of, stepping outside their comfort zone to achieve amazing growth in their life. For those who are practicing courage in real life and want that support, to stick with it rather than pulling back whenever things get uncomfortable. It's not about fixing yourself. It's not about becoming fearless. It's about having a steady place to return to while you build that self-trust over time. Okay, and this is a lifetime access program. This used to be a monthly membership over the course of a year, and I've turned it into a lifetime access program. So there's no pressure to do things quickly. You can go at your own pace. You can come back whenever you need that support. There's no pressure to join. I just want you to know that that offer exists. And so if you want that kind of ongoing support, while you keep on learning to practice leaning in instead of pulling back, you're going to find the link in the description. But in a nutshell, I want you to know that you don't have to be fearless to live a fuller life. Okay? You don't have to wait for the fear to go away. If you're waiting, you're just honestly going to be waiting forever. Okay? You need to stop stepping away from yourself when fear shows up. Okay, and you move in, you lean in instead, one moment at a time, again and again and again. And that is how your life expands. Okay? Because your life doesn't expand when fear leaves. It expands when you stop stepping away from it, when you stop retreating. Okay? Leaning in is going to be the thing that builds safety in you. Okay? And you've got to learn to stay with yourself when fear shows up. Okay, because every time you lean in, even if it's just a little bit, you teach yourself that you can be trusted. Okay? And those little small moments of courage, repeated often, are quietly going to shape and completely change the direction of your life. Okay? Just inching towards yourself, inching towards the true desires that you have. That's the bravest thing that you can do, is just stay present when your instinct is to pull away. And so I hope that you've appreciated this little video when I've, hopefully gone in and showed you the very simple, step by step, simple strategies to help you lean in. Okay, when that temptation is to feel scared. Whenever fear shows up, which it will, just follow my very simple process in order for you to lean into the things that truly matter to you. Okay, because the more you practice this, I promise you amazing things are going to happen. And if you want more support, make sure to check out the Fearless You Club. The link will be in the description, and lifetime access. I have loved sharing this with you, and I cannot wait to touch base with you very soon, my friend. Take care. I've been your host, Frances Vidakovic.